There's been a discussion here going on in the chat about legalization of drugs, with Zidane saying that some people saying that they don't support the legalization of drugs, other people saying that they support decriminalization, other people support legalization. What's your ideas on that, SensiSnax?
Um, Decriminalization is really the way to go. Because legalization, living in Nevada, I'm seeing it firsthand. Legalization also means taxation, and they're still illegal. It's just like everything else. If you have enough money, you can get away with anything.
Yeah.
Where decriminalization would actually open things up to, just simply possessing or producing small amounts of some substances is no longer a life ruining event. It's you're not going to get incarcerated, lose your ability to like like a decent job, and all of this. Whereas legalization means that people with money can buy special licensing, and
Hmm.
then they can go and capitalize off of it. And then people are still allowed, because I got raided by the police well after legalization hit the map,
Yeah.
and I was charged with felonies that would have had me in prison for 25 years,
That's
which
fucked
uh,
up.
yeah, well, think about it. You think that's fucked up? Because of my complexion, it was only going to be 25 years. If you were one
Yeah.
or two shades darker than me, you'd probably get a start with 10 years more than that and up. And that's just the reality of what actually happens.
I
You
hear
know,
you.
I'm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like my complexion, gave me a little bit of a pass.
Yeah.
Same way that I can say I've had the shit kicked out of me by the cops 5 or 6 times instead of just shot once. It
Yeah.
all
I
kind
hear you.
of it
I
all
hear
kind
you.
of ties in.
Yeah, same here. Even growing up, like I've had scuffles with cops. Like I remember one instance, dude. We were just being harassed by cops at a Wendy's, and I remember something had happened, but I ended up squaring up a cop, and I was young. And then like after this whole incident had happened, yo, I got let off scot free. Nothing happened to me. I was like, dude, you know what? If I was black or a person of color, Arab, because there's a lot of like Arabs in the neighborhood and shit, I would have definitely been treated differently. And it's a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of situations. Yeah, a lot of situations that I've been in situations with cops, and I would have although I've been hit, beat, the handcuffs put on way too tight. I've had my head hit into the fucking the top of the door instead of them putting me down. Like a lot of these abuse
fast.
instances have happened, but I
Yeah,
haven't been
I
shot.
yeah. One of my favorites was skateboarding at Love Park in Philly when I was about 16. So around 1995. And anybody who skateboards is probably familiar with Love Park. It's been a pretty well-known, like, just hot spot for like street skating. Great stairs, curved benches, a couple good
Nice.
rails. Great place just to kind of grind around and have fun. But it's always been back and forth with, okay, we're letting skateboarding happening, to no skateboarding whatsoever. And it was me and a couple of my idiot buddies were out just skating around for the day while it was illegal at the time, and we're all minors. So basically, the police were kind of frustrated that they knew they weren't going to get charges on us. So what ended up happening was they had handcuffed all of us, threw the four of us into the back of a paddy wagon with our skateboards, just kind of loose. None of us were buckled in, and we got taken on a ride on it was the I-95 South. We went from Center City to past the airport, to anybody that knows the area. But it's a few miles, and they hit like 65, swerving hard, because we're getting thrown into each
Yeah.
other back and forth.
Fuck.
Skateboards flying around, which people have died in those kinds of situations. I think the only things we really had going for us was we were, you're a little bit more resilient when you're younger, and when you skateboard, especially if you're clumsy like me, one of the first skills you need to work on is learning how to fall.
Hmm.
I did an awful lot of it, so I kind of knew how to, like, basically take a fall without having, I guess, without having any serious, like, effects of it.
Hmm.
But you put somebody who's maybe a little bit older, somebody who doesn't, you know, basically eat concrete 3 or 4 times a day, like out of their hobby, they're not going to take that fall, and you end up with a broken neck. And I'm going to feel like an asshole if I get this wrong, but I feel like it was Freddie Gray in Baltimore who the police murdered doing the same shit.
Oh, okay. It was just skateboarding and shit.
Well, he wasn't skateboarding, but what they had done was they had handcuffed him in the back of a
Oh
paddy
yeah,
wagon
yeah.
and took him on the rough ride where they just swerve and just throw you around.
Hmm.
That's instead of leaving marks in their batons or like, fist marks, it's, oh yeah, well, traffic.
Yeah,
And they can play off like they weren't doing anything, and hey, there's this man who ends up suffering all these severe blunt force traumas and dying in police custody. And I want to say it was one of the many cases where they picked him up on some bullshit misdemeanor that
for sure.
really wouldn't even be worth being arrested and brought into jail.
Hmm.
And here it is that they decided to inflict a death penalty on him. But
No, it's fucked. Yeah, there's horrific stories like that here too, of like specifically like indigenous homeless people getting picked up by the cops. They'll have all their clothes taken away from them, and then they'll like stories I've heard of people being just thrown into a bush. There have been stories, of course, out west of the Starlight tours where they would pick up indigenous peoples, drive them into the cold, cold, cold forests. Not talking about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We're talking about real cold here in fucking Canada.
actual cold.
Yeah, real cold, snow and shit, and they would like pick up drunk people, whatever. They would drive them far into the forest, leave them there, and basically leave them to die. So we have a history of fucked up shit like that here in Canada too, and I can just imagine how it manifests in all of the state iterations. You know what I mean?
Well, and we're finding out just how much deeper things really have been. Like, well, I guess that's my privilege talking, because there's people who've known how bad things are
Yeah,
as it's been going on. But being half white, cis hetero male, like I've been insulated to, as bad as shit's been for me, it really ain't shit to compared to what a lot of people have been through. And like people like me at least are getting to see like, holy shit, we're seeing what's happening with the residential schools
yeah,
in Canada. What's going to happen when we start digging up on reservations out here? I imagine it's going to be every bit as bad. But we live in a pair of we're well paired colonial states with a lot of the same atrocities in our backgrounds. So the Starlight tours, that sounds about par for the course for what's been done. And like I said, I was in Moose Jaw in like late fall, and that
hmm
was, I know that's not that far north, and it's not that cold
still
comparatively.
cold. Yeah,
And yeah, it's more than I wanted to. It's more than I wanted to live through, and that's like
yeah,
with skis and jackets and all of that, not stuck out like left to die. Like
that's
that,
it.
sounds just beyond atrocious.
Yeah, it's disgusting, and it just goes to show how ineffectual and impotent the police as an organization, as an institution, is when dealing with homelessness, the indigenous population in general. I say homelessness because here in Montreal, unfortunately, majority of the population of indigenous people is represented in the homeless population, and yeah, we just really see how ineffectual the police is in dealing with that. Not only ineffectual, but dangerous as well. Hopefully these things will change slowly, slowly. Hopefully we can enter some kind of like a decolonization, not some kind of shallow decolonization, but some kind of a real decolonization.